We are live on Facebook. Hello, everybody. Just going to wait for people to start signing up, signing in, showing up. Oh, interesting. All right. Somebody immediately said hello. Excellent. I don't know who you are, but thank you for the thumb up. It's good to see everybody here. All right. I'm going to wait a few more minutes for people to start gathering. Hope everybody's been having a good week, a good beginning of the week. I'm already used to speaking as if it's a Friday afternoon, but last Friday we had more than the usual amount of craziness, so I decided to, rather than trying to shove it into an increasingly impossible week, to move it to Tuesday, which had the unintended effect of making the rest of this week as crazy as Friday was last week. So I'm not complaining, but it's an interesting and bizarre time that we're living in, as I'm sure you know. Hello, Donovan. Good to see you. All right. Just a few more minutes and we'll get going. If you like, you can tell me hello in the comments, and that way I'll know that the comments are working. And tell me where you are in the world and what sort of madness is happening just outside of your window. It's finally winter out there for us. It snowed today, the first time in a month. Yeah, about right. We had a nice big snow about a month ago, and then it went up to 70 for 2 weeks. So, as if that wasn't enough in this crazy and very bizarre year. But, there it is. All right, let's get going. I'm sure we'll have more people show up as the video goes on. So, welcome everybody. My name is Nicholas Kotar. I am a fantasy author, an Orthodox deacon. I am a podcaster. I am a blogger. I am a speaker. I am a teacher. I am a professional soloist and a choir conductor. Yes, the list is long, and I say it not with any bit of self-aggrandizement, because I will be the first to tell you that nobody should ever wear that many hats and expect to remain sane, especially with 3 small children in the house at all times in an age when remote work has become absolutely necessary. Not that I have an office, I don't. I remote work most of the time anyway. But winter's coming, the kids are getting restless, so things are interesting, and a space of quiet for work and contemplation is increasingly becoming more and more difficult to find, which is all part of what we're talking about here, about resilience and courage through story, especially in times of hardship. So those of you who have come to me, who have come to listen for the first time, I'll go through a quick recap. This is the last video in a series that was supposed to be 7 weeks long, and it ended up being about 7 weeks, but not 7 videos, on resilience and courage through story. And the idea came about partly as a result of my Patreon book club's reading of The Lord of the Rings. Aragorn, more than ever before, stood out to me this time, my 12th read through, I think, as someone who was a really fantastic role model to do what Cal Newport, a hero of mine, calls the deep reset. What he's talking about is to embrace a different kind of life, one that isn't constantly conditioned by reactively freaking out about the news. I think anybody with half a brain will agree that reading the news nowadays is an exercise not only in futility, but probably in comedy. As though the human race has never gone through plagues before, Cal Newport calls the deep reset a way of embracing a different way, a different kind of life, a different kind of relating to difficulty, especially unexpected difficulty, that involves shutting out shallow and manipulative sources of information, of which there are legion, and delving deeply into solitude, into study with the mentor, into deep, long-form knowledge, into craft, and ultimately into what Ivan Ilyin, the great Russian philosopher, calls the deep heart. In my previous lessons, I talked about how to find a mentor, even if you can't have one sitting next to you drinking coffee with you on a weekly basis. Then we talked about the importance of solitude. We talked about the importance of starting and maintaining a craft both for the hands and for the mind. And we talked about why accepting your doom, in the sense of doom that Tolkien gives it, as a kind of calling that is conditioned by the realities of life, not by what you would like the realities of life to be. And so we come finally, so in retrospect, if we look at the lessons that Aragorn has to give us, they are as follows. The first one is find a mentor, but make sure he or she is the right one, because the wrong mentor can do much more damage than no mentor at all. Second is to seek solitude, because in that solitude is both contemplation and joy. The third is to try out different ideas, sometimes bad ones, by delving deeply into their hearts, to test them out and see if those ideas have anything good in their heart, keeping in mind the teachings of your mentor. Then find a craft, become good at it, seek a course of study, delve deeply into it, and as I talked about last time, start to seek a way of life that descends constantly into the reality of your own heart. That means a very specific kind of relation to culture, to spirituality, to the world around you, that is intended to sharpen the natural instinct that human beings have to do good in illuminating ways. But today we get to the really important stuff. Because if the first 5 steps of Aragorn's journey are a kind of testing phase that you can do on your own inside the comfort of your own home, we're going into the action phase now. The action phase consists of 2 parts. The first is extending your heart outward. Of course, this is very much conditioned by you having descended into your heart in the first place and started to really relate to yourself on a deeper foundation. But once you start doing that, then you can really accept something that let's call the quest, with a mix of humility and purpose to transform your life into something deeper and then transform the lives of others around you. Not through teaching them how to do it, but through being a source of illumination that they can't avoid but be attracted to, they can't avoid but want to emulate. So actually, on the face of it, it's not all that complicated if you look at it written out in a nice little list of 7 principles. But of course, it's not easy at all. Because if you do this before you're ready, if you extend outward into the action phase, one of 2 things will happen. One, and this is probably what most of you have seen, especially out there in the social media, you'll be an overbearing and annoying moron who can't see his or her own blind spots. We see a lot of this right now. In the wake of the election and even before the election, in the myriad, many different gradations of both nonsense and wisdom when it comes to the reactions, both scientific and non-scientific, to the pandemic, we see a lot of this sort of overbearingness. That's the first thing that will happen if you're not ready. The second thing is you might burn out very quickly if you're not ready. If you extend outwards too quickly, you are exposing your deep heart very quickly to others. That way lies burnout, and it's a very dangerous kind of burnout that all of us are probably going to have to face on some level during these next coming months, because things are probably going to get worse before they get better. In other words, if I leave you with any thought after these videos here, which are ostensibly about storytelling, but really are about using story to live a more deeply rewarding life, the reality probably is that for a long time still, most of your attention, most of my attention, most of our attention will probably be focused on the things we've spoken about in the testing phase. Just because I'm talking about the action phase today does not mean that I recommend that everybody go into the action phase right now. It's going to take a while. It might take years. And really, it's not a matter of checking off numbers on a list and finally getting to a point where you can share with your great and vast wisdom. If I learn anything from reading Ivan Ilyich's Foundations of a Christian Culture, which is a wonderful, wonderful book, highly recommended, it's that the important thing is to start moving along the path of internal transformation, not finishing it, because you will not be able to finish it. And if you continually try to finish it, but before extending your heart outwards towards others, and extending your story out towards others, extending your talents and your gifts out towards others, then you're never going to do it. You're just going to be stuck in eternal solipsism, waiting for some sort of a divine voice to tell you, move out and go do your thing. Yeah, well, all of us are Moses, are we? So, let's be honest. For most of these coming months, we're probably all going to be focused very, very hard on the testing phase, on finding a mentor, on learning to love solitude, on reading a lot, trying out different ideas, becoming good at a craft, all in the process of accepting this reality as a way of making ourselves ready for whatever might possibly come over these next months, years, in our lifetime. But if we do this, at a certain point, something interesting will happen. I know because it has happened to me on some level already. Not that I've somehow reached a higher level of something or other. Yes, Moses, I recognize that you are Moses. Sorry, I'm going to add this to the broadcast because it's appropriate. Anyway, I think all of you will have had a moment, or maybe several, those of you especially who work in creative fields, a moment that if you started the process of internal work properly, you get these little intimations of, oh, I want to try this thing. I want to write this story that I've never thought about before. I want to express this particular talent of mine that I've never shown to anyone else before. And you feel this interesting sense of time and space coming together in a way that perfectly makes possible this expression of this gift. But in order to properly understand it without getting too woo-woo, because I don't like getting woo-woo, I'm going to read from the Russian fairy tale of Vasilisa the Beautiful, which I've shared with you before. But this tale expresses the moment of internal readiness for the heart to extend outward in the gift of story or in the gift of talents or in the gift of craft in a way that is really beautiful. So I wanted to share it with you. This is after, those of you who haven't read the story, do check out my podcast, In a Certain Kingdom, where I retell this entire story and set to beautiful music. And I also do a little bit of analysis of the story more deeply than I'm able to in this live video here. So at this point, Vasilisa has gone through the Gauntlet. She's gone basically into the depths of the dark forest, which is, the Gauntlet. She's come out of it. She's come out with not merely a talisman that protects her from evil and gets rid of in a very scary way, the hindrance of her stepmother and stepsisters. But now a new phase of the story begins. Vasilisa buried the skull that burned up her stepmother and stepsisters. She buried the skull in the earth, locked the house, and went into the city. She asked to live with an old woman who had no family. The old woman took her in. There Vasilisa lived for a while, waiting for her father to return from his trip. But soon she got bored. "Grandmother," she said to her, "I don't like sitting around with no work. Can you get me some linen? I want to sew something." The old woman went to the town and bought her some of the best linen she could find. Vasilisa sat down, and the work just flowed out of her. She spun the linen thread so finely, so straight, that it was like human hair. Soon it was time to begin weaving, but no loom was found anywhere that could fit such fine thread, and no one even bothered to help Vasilisa find a better one. They just said it simply couldn't be done. So Vasilisa asked her doll for help. Those of you who know the story, she has a doll that fulfills her wishes, but in very interesting ways. "Bring me an old loom," said the doll, "an old shuttle, and some horsehair. I'll fix everything up for you." Vasilisa did as she was told, and as she was supposed to do, she went to sleep. Overnight, the doll made her a beautiful, brand new loom. By the end of winter, Vasilisa finished her weaving. It was so thin, so fine, that it could fit, the entire fabric could fit through the eye of a needle. In spring, she and the old woman whitened the linen, and Vasilisa told the old woman, "Go ahead, grandmother, sell the linen. You can keep the money." But the old woman looked at the linen and gasped, "No, my child, no one but the king can wear such linen. I am going to bring it directly to the palace." So the old woman went to the palace grounds, but kept walking back and forth in front of the windows. Finally, the king noticed and asked, "What do you need, old woman?" "Your Royal Highness," she said, "I have brought you a wondrous thing. I want to show it to no one but you." The king ordered that she be let in. He took one look at the linen and gasped aloud. "What do you want for it?" asked the king. "Why, it's priceless, my lord king," said the woman. "I'll give it to you for free." When it came time to make a shirt from that linen, though, it was so fine no seamstress dared even try it. So finally the king had to call the old woman back and said, "If you could weave such a fine fabric, then you should be able to make a shirt out of it." "But it wasn't me, Highness," said the old woman. "It was a young girl in my charge." "Well, then have her make the shirt." The old woman left and told Vasilisa everything. And Vasilisa smiled to herself and said, "I knew that this work would come back to me." She locked herself up in her room and started to work. She worked without stopping for as long as it took, and soon she had 12 shirts ready. This is a lovely conclusion to a rather dour and kind of dark story. Why? Because it has, in the movement of the story, it has an entire kind of hero's journey's worth of insight, especially for this moment that I want to talk about today, the inner awakening that gives you the sense that it's now time to stop being in your own head and start moving out to help others with your gift. So the moment of awakening is simple for her. She is sitting at home, having gone through some terrible, frightening experiences, but rather than wait for her father and kind of let things take their course, she can't possibly sit still. She must do something with her hands. And initially, this is the moment of testing. This is where all the ordeals that she has gone through have to go physically into the object that she is making. But what ends up happening? There is a synthesis of craft and something else, something transcendent, something from outside. Call it talent, shall we? And in the synthesis, in the synergy of simple hard work and talent that is illuminated or inspired by some source from outside, something incredible comes out. This fabric that nobody can even sew, because every single needle would just tear a hole in it, and every single bit of thread that would be necessary to hold the pieces of the fabric together in a shirt form would simply rip the thing apart. So the next level is needed. So first we have the need to work. This is the first moment of awakening. I can't sit still. I have to work. I'm sick of sitting in my own head and my own thoughts, sick of thinking through all the possibilities, of relating to the outside darkness, relating to the difficulty that I have to go through. I need to do something. That's the first sign, and she does it, and that's how we should respond to it as well. Then something happens, the inspiration in the process, where the work seems to flow out from her. That is not simply a gift, and nor is it simply something that happens in fairy tales. That is the natural result of the first 5 steps of Aragorn's journey, the testing phase, of taking all of those steps, of going deep into yourself and practicing and honing and thinking and being and engaging with thoughts and with other ideas and with other people, even at a distance. And only then, after you've gone through that gauntlet, through that difficulty, can you then allow, or it allows you, the inspiration comes and it just makes the thing happen. Something that writers call flow state. Those of you who are writers will know what I'm talking about. Comes a point when you're writing any story that you no longer have a problem with putting word after word when you're sitting down either in front of your notebook or at your laptop. The words flow, and the story flows, and the ideas come out as though unimpeded, like water breaking through a dam. It's quite a wonderful and fantastic feeling. And it can only happen, again, in this moment of synergy, of synthesis between internal dogged work ethic and something ineffable, talent, or as Evangelion would call it, illumination, that can only come about as a result of descending deeply and facing yourself inside yourself. And then after that comes the moment of the sharing of the work with others. When Vasilisa says, I knew this work would come back to me. And that is the really beautiful moment. When not simply have you shared that gift, not simply have you extended your heart outward, following the list of tasks based on Aragorn's life, but that extending of the heart comes back to you in the feedback from those who encounter your gift, encounter your story, encounter your talent. And then they say, what do I do with this? Tell me more. And then you have that incredible and wonderful conversation that happens between reader and writer, between artist and viewer, between storyteller and audience, between gift giver and gift receiver. That is where the magic happens. And that's where, as we know in the story, those of you who haven't finished that story, again, listen to the episode in my podcast, In a Certain Kingdom, they get to a point where they encounter the king. And the king, of course, is an image of that thing that we are reaching for, that perfection of human and divine happiness, that moment Evangelion calls of illumination coming from the heart that cannot help but awaken others to the same journey, to the same process. And so this is the thought that I really wanted to leave you with as I conclude this series on resilience and courage through story. It looks like we're entering a long, dark winter. I have been reassured by the many reasoned, calm voices that there are out there about politics, about the pandemic, about a lot of things. But there are still far more reactions that are inspired by blind fear and something that I cannot help but call mass psychosis. I mean, just give you one brief little example as a story, not as a political comment. The mayor of a town in Ohio, I think it's Akron, just today has demanded that people wear masks as they sit at home during their home Thanksgiving celebration. But that's not enough. He's also providing everyone with a hotline so that neighbors can do the proper thing and rat out their neighbors. They're evil, quarantine-breaking, subhuman brothers. Welcome to the surveillance state, my people. But rather than rail about it, there's enough of that going on. I know you know that. What I want to leave you with is a call to action, not simply to complaining. Whatever your talent is, whatever your abilities are, whatever your gift is, please don't hoard it this winter. Cultivate it. And if the moment comes, and you'll know when it comes, share with others if you can. If you've reached that moment of deep illumination that Ilin talks about, that moment to talk about, to answer indirectly Seraphim's question about the human divine inner royalty, Ilin talks more about the human person having a divine principle inside himself that he or she rarely realizes because it happens in the heart. He's quoting scripture there. The kingdom of God is within you. So he doesn't get very esoteric with it. He's quite traditional with that idea. But all that to say that deep illumination that he talks about, and that the story Vasilisa the Beautiful illustrates, that's what I want us all to hold on to. Accept your quest. What does that mean? That means be a light now in the darkness. Provide hope through story. Provide hope through new culture, the creation of culture. And Seraphim, yes, that is in the book about Christian culture, as well as the essay that I wrote, that I translated for you all last week. Educate yourselves. We talked about that in our video about testing out ideas, both good and bad ones. Educate yourselves. Don't give in to, and it's very easy to do this. You have to fight it. Don't give in to the prevailing narrative that is essentially fear-mongering. And Margaret, yeah, divine human synergy in the sense that the human part provides the effort and the labor, and it is the talent and the resonance that happens with others that is mostly the purview of the divine. Because if we were simply working with our own human abilities, we wouldn't be able to do very much when it comes to inspiration. I think we're seeing that a lot. Twitter is certainly not a source of much other than anger and ranting. Not much human divine synergy there. Educate yourselves. Don't give in to the prevailing narrative of fear-mongering, and start living for the purpose of the edification and the love of others. Extend your heart. Accept your quest. Change the world. That's what I want to leave you with as we finish this series. Now, talking about a very specific kind of changing the world through storytelling, through finding, reading, encountering, and writing the best kinds of stories for this difficult time. And if you are a writer, if you have ever been a writer or want to be a writer, I have a special gift and a special announcement for you. I am doing a free webinar next week. It's titled 3 Easy and Effective Ways to Become the Writer You've Always Wanted to Be. And it's going to be me letting you into the process of what works for me, but not simply for me when it comes to writing, but some of the principles, and there are not that many, and they are not that difficult, and they are not limited merely to my kind of personality, to some very simple and easy techniques that will help you establish a writing ritual, establish a writing practice, and be able to manufacture and develop the kinds of ideas and characters that get people reading and not stopping. You might be surprised by this, but actually there are not that many rules, and they're easy to remember and to implement. The rest of the job, of course, is to do it again and again and again until you get so good, or you find that perfect moment of synergy that the thing that you create becomes irresistible. And that takes time, and I can only help you with that insofar as I can give you some general guidelines or guideposts to the map that will eventually help you become the right kind of storyteller that will change the world. Because I honestly do believe that stories can and do change hearts, and a changed heart can then go and change other people's hearts. And that's how we make and effect small, important change in the world around us, which I think all of us would like to see. So with no further ado, I am sharing the link to this webinar in the comment section. I have just done that. It'll take a few seconds before it comes through. So go ahead and sign up. That's happening next Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And it will be a prelude to other gifts and other announcements. I will also tell you that for anybody who shows up live, I will be doing a drawing of some kind, whether it's to win a product or to win some exclusive one-on-one time with me to actually workshop your story. It might be both. You'll have to come and see. So that's my offering, my gift to you. Come, hear me rant. It's going to be a happy rant because we're not going to be talking about the world outside. We're going to be talking about the wonderful and illuminating process of writing and how you can do it better and how you can do it in a way that will not leave you staring at the blank screen totally blocked. Because, by the way, secret, no such thing as writer's block. But I'll talk more about that next Monday. So come, sign up. If you're there live, you will have access to some special gifts. And do tell your writer and storyteller friends, or even those who have never written a story and you think should, because they tell stories so well around the table during dinner, whether it's Thanksgiving or not. Come. I'd be very happy to see you all. And in the meantime, I wanted to also express my thanks to all of you who have come out to these live videos that I've been doing. Those of you who have commented, those of you who have provided me with lovely feedback on my videos, both on Facebook and YouTube. I'm going to be taking a slight break from live videos for a while, simply because I have some big projects that have some very tight and specific deadlines. But I will be sharing some information about those projects, which include me writing a narrative, a libretto for a full-length classical music composition by Benedict Sheehan. If that's something that's that it interests you, by the way, I will be having an exclusive Q&A with Benedict at some point for my Patreon supporters. So I'm going to be doing a lot more. Stuff in Patreon itself. I've been unfortunately leaving my Patreon people a little bit in the dark as I finished the first season of the In a Certain Kingdom podcast. But my activity over there in Patreon is going to be increasing. And just so you know, my third book, The Heart of the World in the Ravensense, the third book in the Ravensense series, is now officially available in audiobook on all retailers except for Audible. And I have to be careful because I will rant, but ACX, the company that runs the production side of the Audible interface, is going through some extremely unprofessional and very serious problems. So extensive that they've actually written letters to all of their producers and all of their users asking sort of forgiveness for up to 6-month waiting times to get authors' audiobooks approved. So I have submitted it to Audible, but God only knows when it's going to be available through the Audible storefront. There are other places you can get audiobooks. Every single other audiobook retailer that is out there, including, I think, audiobooks.com. There are some other. I don't use them. I use Audible, ironically, but there are. Just look it up. Look up other audiobook retailers than Audible, and you'll find it. Book 3 is available. All that to say that I am giving out free codes to the full audiobook of Book 3, The Heart of the World, to my Patreon supporters right now. And they are going like hotcakes, and there's a limited number. So if you want to hear the audiobook and you don't want to pay the full price for it, what you can do is you can actually just become a patron of yours truly at a low price point or a high price point, however you like. And you'll automatically be in the group that gets the option to receive the free audiobook download codes. So go ahead and do that if you like. Patreon.com/Nicholas Kotar. And that's enough selling from me. I just wanted you all to know that the audiobook is available. It's been a long and hard journey to get that thing out, but it's out. And I'm hoping that we'll get 4 and 5 out by the middle of next year. But we're in the process of making sure that happens. In the meantime, I wish you all joy in the coming Thanksgiving. I wish you all courage in the coming madness, because it is coming and it is already here. And I wish you all the wisdom to recognize which stories are good and which ones are trying to sell you a lie. Because there's a lot of stories going on right now, a lot of narratives being told. Very little is being conditioned by, as we would like to think, pure scientific rationality. Guess what? That doesn't exist! But that's the subject for a different rant. And perhaps I will include that rant someday on this live channel in the future. But for now, that's it. I'm about to go have dinner with my lovely children, who have been driving me nuts all day, so I have to go and extend my love towards them, because I have been extending things other than love to them previously to this dinner. Anyway, enough of that. I hope you're all doing well. I encourage you all to check out the webinar. Come, let's chat. Let's see what we can do together about writing better stories for this world, which needs it. Let's be honest. All right, everybody. It's been lovely chatting with you all. And if you want to, leave in the comments any ideas you have for future videos that I might do after I've taken a bit of a break. In the meantime, good night. Have a lovely rest of the week.